Hey everybody, Josh from Populi. Today we're going to look at creating awards and dispersing financial aid. If you work in financial aid, you don't need us to tell you that students seem obsessed with getting financial aid to help pay their tuition. You also don't need us to tell you that financial aid is money from various sources that you disperse to students. Further, you don't need us to tell you that money is a fungible abstraction of value that we exchange in return for goods and services. And at the risk of being too obvious, you also don't need us to tell you that in our society, we can use money to buy things we want, like ice cream and lawnmowers. There's just no way that you need us to tell you that lawnmowers can be used to keep the grass on your lawn looking neat and tidy, and that on a hot day, you have to be vigilant with an ice cream cone or you risk making a real mess. But you might need us to tell you how to create and disperse financial aid in Populi, and that's what we're going to do today. First things first, in order to create awards and kind of manage all the things we're going to talk about today, you'll need to have the financial aid role. The exception to that comes up in the disbursement batch process. In order to finish that process, you'll need someone with either the financial admin or the student billing role. We'll get into that more later. Also, just a note at the beginning here, some of our users have an integration with the Department of Education and Populi, and some don't. So there are slight differences here and there, and we'll step over into the Department of Education land occasionally, and we'll indicate that with this icon. Here's a flyby of the process. You're going to connect an ISIR to a profile. ISIR stands for Institutional Student Information Record, and it's basically the information that results from a student completing their FAFSA. Connecting an ISIR to a student profile creates an aid application on the profile. The aid application is there to help you manage the various things you need to complete in order to get students ready to receive aid. As the aid application makes progress, you'll create student awards for whatever aid types they're receiving. You'll also create disbursements, typically by term, on each award. And for those DoED users, you'll sync those awards and disbursements. If you aren't integrated, you'll be like a seaworthy vessel. You won't sink. Just a little joke. Still in the Department of Education area, you'll get responses from them, from SEG, about the awards and disbursements, whether they've been accepted or rejected. Then you'll fix any errors and resync and go through that process until you get everything accepted. After you've got everyone's awards and disbursements created and ready, you're waiting to disperse. When it comes time to disperse, someone with a financial aid role will create a batch. Then someone with a financial admin or student billing role will step in and take over the last few steps of the process to post aid. After that, you'll manage refunds, and those will be both refunds to students and then returns to sources, including R2T4. No, not that cute robot from Star Wars. We're talking about Return to Title 4, which is also not a Star Wars movie. Then you're done. Now let's get into Populi and go over this process in greater detail. You choose, whatever. Okay. The process in Populi starts, like we said, with an ISIR. So let's go to where those ISIRs live in financial aid, and then under aid applications, ISIRs right here. So we're going to add an ISIR to a particular student. Typically what'll happen is the ISIR will make a suggestion for you. So you can see we're making a suggestion right there. It's looking at the birth date. It's looking at social security number if there's one entered in the system in the profile already. It's looking at the first and last names. If there's no match, you have other options. You can create a new person whole cloth, or you can link to somebody else who's already in the system. Just because of the way that the example works today, we're going to link to somebody already in the system. So that's probably something that won't happen as much for you, since you'll typically have information on profiles that will match information on ISIRs. A couple things will happen. You're going to create a new admissions lead. So if this person already has an admissions lead, you're going to create a new one. You can choose which of your admissions reps to assign that to here. Also, a new aid application will be created for this person, this existing profile in Populi, and you can assign that to a specific representative there on the admissions team, or and you can also choose the classification that you'd like to assign to them. We're going to go ahead and just do full-time undergraduate. We'll talk about classification and what that affects later on. So I'll click import, and then we're going to jump over to that student. Okay. On the student's profile, you won't see anything right here. We won't really see a change until we get into financial aid. So then we're going to go to the aid year. This is an older ISIR that we have as an example here, but we're going to go to that aid year, and then you'll see that showing up right here. So that's where the ISIR, that's how we know that this ISIR is connected. We've got the correct aid year selected, and then we have that ISIR listed down there. And then we also have the aid application. This has all been created based on what we did before we clicked import there. So you can see that the classification has been supplied there already. Okay, now like we said in the intro, this aid application here is something that basically enables you to track where you are in the process of getting the student ready to receive aid. Okay, so if we click edit here, you can see that we've already supplied the cost of attendance based on that classification, other details, etc. We're not going to go too in depth on some of this stuff since we're just kind of talking about the process generally. The expected family contribution, that comes from the ISIR as well. And then we've got a few other details over here. One of the big ones, obviously, before you're able to really disperse aid to this person, they need to have a completed financial aid application. So once it's appropriate, you'll set that status to completed. Another thing of interest here, basically the verification. We allow you to manage verification here. We're going to just set up a standard verification, and you can track that through various stages there as well. One other thing, you also have the ability to, with your classification here, create components on the application. Those are basically a checklist for you all as you're working with students, finishing up everything that you need to get from them in order to process aid. You're creating a checklist, a customized checklist of your own, what you need from them, what you all need to do. That can be managed right there. We'll go ahead and save that. So we're changing that status to complete right there. And now that might happen. You might get through and complete everything for someone before you create awards, or you might start creating awards before you've completed that process. We're going to real quick just add a real simple DL unsub for $1,000 to this student. Then we're going to make this offered as a status, and then we're going to pop in some scheduled disbursements here. I'm going to do one for fall, and then we'll create, two different disbursements, one for fall and one for spring, and then another $500, and add that there. So now we have those two created. Just as a note, you can also set up your aid classification to work with aid year schedules so that when you add that aid classification to someone and then associate the aid year schedule with this award, you'll automatically create those disbursements. So that manual process that we just went through there won't apply if you have that all set up, if you're using aid classifications with aid year schedules. Just saves a little bit of time. You can see there that we've got that award set up with those disbursements already on there. Great. Now, this is where, again, things diverge a little bit. This is Department of Education land that we're talking about right now. Basically, at this point, you would go over and sync this award, all the awards you've set up, over to the DoED. And that's originating those awards in COED, and then you're waiting for a response from them. Once you get that response back, you get acceptances, you get rejections, and then you go through and work on those rejections and then resync those until you get everything good to go. That's how you manage things on the Department of Education side. Back in kind of the non-integrated situation, you're just waiting at this point until you reach those disbursement dates. And then we're going to go ahead and move ahead with that. One of the things that'll happen is you'll see that this is in offered status. That means that when a student logs in to look at this, they'll see an opportunity to accept or decline this award. Once they click accept or decline there, then that comes back to you, and then you'll be able to move ahead with that. So assuming that they've accepted that, then the status will change to accepted, or you can manually set it just like I did there, and then you'll save. Okay, so now you can see things change a little bit. This is, of course, again, the DoED side of things. These are set up so that they could potentially be synced over to COD. Now that that's all accepted, we've got a completed aid application. We have an accepted award here. We're able to jump over to financial, and we're going to look at the process of actually dispersing aid. So you can see that if we look at that aid year, that award is showing up right there, and we're going to be able to include it in a disbursement batch. So that's what we're going to do. We've gone to financial aid, awards, disbursement batches, and we'll click new batch. Just like Gremlins 2. Gremlins 2 is the new batch. Yeah, it's not a great movie. Now, we have constrained the dates here a little bit. So we're showing those 2 completed app status items there, those disbursements that are associated with Sarah's profile. We're only going to disperse one of those. Okay, so we're assuming that we're close enough to that date to distribute that money. These, of course, can be used here. These aid types can be used to control what exactly shows up here. We're going to have that one selected and then click create this batch. And then what we'll do is just advance to the next stage. So we'll advance. For these steps, you're basically indicating that if you're not integrated with DoED, that you've done this elsewhere and are just kind of recording the process here. And then once you've reached, if you're just the financial aid person for your institution, once you've reached this step, funds requested, you will not be able to progress further. That's where that handoff is made between you and your business or office, billing, whatever it is, to actually go through and post those awards to student accounts. Okay, so now with the either the student billing or the financial admin role, someone would be able to continue to advance this batch through the stages and then finally post to student accounts. So you can see here that we're not appealing to the scheduled date here as we go to post. That always defaults to the current day. We allow you to change that. So if you need to change it, if you're post dating this, if you're not integrated with DoED, then you'd be able to do that right there. If you're just saying, oh, actually, we already did this, it's all gone through, but now we're recording it in Populi for a past date, you'd be able to do that. but we assume that you're kind of doing this as you're dispersing. So then we default to the current date. You can also choose how to send this, how you're going to communicate to students here. You can send an automatic email that uses these variables. So even if you have a whole bunch of students in this batch, they'll get personalized email with their first name, their actual awards and the amounts and all that kind of stuff there. So if we want that to go out, we just have that checked and then hit complete batch. Once we do that, now we'll go look at Sarah's profile and see what effect that has had. You can see, first of all, that fall amount has been posted there. Now I want to do a couple things. I want to go look at the dashboard. Depending on how you're set up, you might not even see this payment show up here as unapplied. Typically, you would be set up to auto apply payments, so you don't have to go through and manually apply them to all the invoices that you'd need to throughout all of your students receiving aid. You just wanted to auto apply probably within the same term here. So if you're pointed at the fall term for a certain academic year, you have an invoice for that same term in that academic year, then this would automatically apply. But we're going to show you what it looks like if that's not showing up there. I'm going to point this directly at that $1,000 invoice within that same term, and I'm going to apply $300 of this here. Okay, so you can see we still have some money left over, but what's going on is when we look at that invoice there, we can see the amount that's been paid. It's from that aid payment there, and the amount still due. So that's all showing up here as part of the accounting. We've actually affected students' balance, and we're starting to pay down that invoice there. So that's that. That's pretty much that process. One of the things left over would be to look at those refunds. Remember, we can refund to students. We can also refund to source. So I'm going to show you what it looks like to run a real quick refund credit balance here. We're going to choose, we can choose a couple different levels here. We could look at federal aid in general. So if we had an unsub and a sub, maybe a plus loan or something there, we would be able to choose federal aid and then refund it just kind of out of that big federal aid bucket. But we can also get specific and just refund out of the unsubsidized direct loan payment that we have there. So we're going to go ahead and refund $100 to this student. We're going to record that as a check and just go ahead and save that. Okay, so now if we go back and look at financial aid, you'll see there we've got a refund to student recorded there. So we're tracking that here under financial aid for that aid year. We still have those $95 of that aid payment left over. And there's one more thing we want to see real quick. Let's go to financial aid, and then we'll do a quick refund to source. So what we'll do is we'll just refund those $95 that we have left over there, and then save. And now we've got a refund to source scheduled. You'll see there. This works exactly like the batch process. So we'll go back to financial aid, and then under awards, we'll go to disbursement batches. Then we'll click new batch, and then we'll click batch type and set that to refund to source. Okay, we're going to open this up a little bit because I think we're looking at current date there. So there we go. That's the refund to source that we want to include in a batch. We'll click create this batch, and then we just have a couple of steps to walk through here. And then we've made that change to the student's account. We're going to complete the batch, and then we'll go look at Sarah real quick and see exactly what's happened there. So there's her profile. We've got that aid, that disbursement still out there that hasn't been posted yet. We've got the posted disbursement, and then we've got the refund to student and a refund to source all there. So we've got that recorded, all that activity recorded. So we went through connecting an ISIR to a student profile, which creates an aid application, got that aid classification hooked up there as well to provide the cost of attendance. The ISIR brings the EFC on there, so we get the correct remaining need for a student. Then we go and create those awards and disbursements. We batch those disbursements through and then post those amounts to student profiles. If you need to, then you're able to manually manage those, where those payments apply, things like that. And then with any leftover money or money that needs to go back, you're able to manage those refunds to the student and refunds to sources. That's the aid process in a nutshell. Thanks a lot for watching. Go ahead, click that subscribe button, and then you'll see the little notifications bell. Click that, ding, 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 to get notified about new videos that we have coming up. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day.